So in today's exercise, we're going to make this object here and then do some modifications to it. So let's get started, and we'll pull up AutoCAD here. And the first thing that we're going to do on this is to draw the cylinder and add the bases to it. So we'll add the cylinder, the thickness of the cylinder. You can see here it says the cylinder wall thickness is 1/8 of an inch. After we get this part done, we're going to add this bracket over here, and then we'll do some modifications to it. So first things first, we can draw this right in the top viewport. So by default, obviously we're in AutoCAD's top viewport. So I'll start off with a circle, and or we could start off with a cylinder. It doesn't really matter. If you wanted to use a primitive, you could start off with a cylinder, and basically asks for the base radius of the cylinder. So the inner part of this is 1.5, or we could go ahead and just draw a circle, which is what I'm going to do. So I'll do a circle with a diameter of 1.5, and then it has an offset of that of 0.125. So we'll offset that as well. Okay, so now we have both of these objects here. So basically we have the inner hole and then the outer portion of this with the cylinder wall thickness. From there we could actually draw the base if we wanted to at this point, before I even do any extrusions at this point. So I'll just go ahead and draw this. The base is 2.5 inches square. So so we could do something like that. I think I'll just draw a polyline off to the side here and go 2.5 by 2.5 by 2.5 and close. Okay. The base has a fillet radius of 0.125, so we'll do a fillet with a radius of 0.125, and we'll do a polyline and select it, and there we go. Alright, so now we have to position this base on our cylinder, so we can go ahead and move this, and I'll use temporary tracking points. So I'll put one there at the midpoint, one there at the midpoint, and that's where they intersect, and bring it over here to the center, and we have our base plate at this point. We might as well put in our holes at this point, so we're going to put in as much geometry as we can before we start extruding this thing out. So I'm going to put in a center line, okay, so something like that, and the offset for these holes are 0.94. Okay, so yep, we're going to go 0.94, 0.94, 0.94, and 0.94, like that. So we'll put in a hole here, a circle. Let's see, these holes have a diameter of 0.31, so diameter 0.31. Okay. And we have 4 of them, so we're going to just copy from that point to that point, and I can mirror these from here right across here like that. So we'll erase some of our construction lines, get rid of some of this stuff, and we're ready to start doing some extrusion. So I have to switch my mouse here, so just a second. I'll go ahead and do that. Alright, so now I'll just orbit in 3D space a little bit like this. Okay. The cylinder itself is 3.5 inches high, so first thing I'm going to do is make some regions. So region, and I'll just highlight all of these things like that, and I'm going to use the subtract command. So I'm going to pick this one first and subtract this one second. So that creates one region like that, and we can go ahead and extrude this. a height of 3.5. Okay, so something like that. And then I can use subtract again and subtract out these holes. Okay, and we know it's done correctly because when we select it, you can see all of them being selected at once. And the base plate itself is 1/4 of an inch high, so we'll just go ahead and put in 0.25. Okay, and at this point here, we have to now copy this base plate from here back up to this center, okay, which puts that on top, and I just have to move it down from here, and I'm going to just drag down 0.25 so that it's flush with the top of the other cylinder. We could see that a little bit better if I undo that, just so that you can kind of see what I'm doing here. I'm going to go ahead and shade this with edges. So you can see in here, let's see, shading with edges is kind of hard to see. Let's do conceptual. Okay. So in here right now, this base plate needs to be flush like this one is here, and it's not. So we need to just move this down, and it doesn't matter where I pick a base point as long as I'm dragging straight down like this, 0.25. Okay. So something like that. Okay. So now I have this base plate and this base plate and the cylinder, and if I union them all together, make them one object like this, you can see we get something that looks like that. Okay. Now when I did that, it consumed that other cylinder on the inside, and I have to actually cut that back out through the bottom here. So I can change here from conceptual to say X-ray, or we can change back to conceptual, I guess, or wireframe. Okay, if we go into wireframe, you can see here we got the wireframe. So you can see how that cylinder needs to be cut out. So I'm going to go ahead and just put in a new cylinder right here. And remember, the inside of that had a diameter of 1.5. Okay, so we'll just extrude this. Okay, and I'll go ahead and change this back to conceptual. So extrude, and I need to actually find that circle to extrude, and you can see when I go over the object here, you can't actually see what I'm picking. One thing that's really good to have in 3D is your object cycling. That's on down here. Let's see, it's right here, this object selection cycling. So we can do something like that. So if we use extrude, we might be able to actually pick that circle if we tried here. We can see when I go ahead and pick that, I get my circle, and I can hit enter, and I can extrude this all the way down through like that. And we know that this has to go through the top as well, so I just want to poke it through the top so that it's kind of, going through both like that. Then we'll use the subtract command and go ahead and just pick that and subtract that out. Okay, so at this point here we have our sketch all done up. Now notice when I did this, I didn't use the different viewports. I did everything right in 3D. But the next part may require me to go in there and do some of that type of work by using multiple viewports. So I'll go ahead and switch over to multiple viewports here. So we have our front and our right, okay, and our top, okay, so, and then our isometric here. So the base itself is 3 1/4 inches away from the center, so I need to put on a center line here. So like I've talked to some of you guys about this, basically putting construction lines on here. Start the line in the viewport that you want to do your offsetting in. So I want to offset from my top viewport, and I want my line, my construction line, to be right here on the top. So I'm going to come over here and physically pick this top circle here, the center of it, and then come back over here and draw it up like that. Then use the offset command of 3.25 and offset this over like that. So that gives us that, and I'm going to go ahead and put another line in, and I want it to be right there. And now you see when I did that, see how I thought that I was snapping to that endpoint, but I didn't. I actually snapped to the bottom or the base of this. So that's why you have to kind of be aware of, you know, when you're drawing a line, you know, coming over here and actually picking where you want your line to be, you know, will make a big difference. So we'll go ahead and offset that again. This base is 3.625, so I want to offset that half. So I'm going to use the apostrophe calculate command here. You can see down here I'm just typing in apostrophe cal, hitting enter, and then my expression is 3.625 divided by 2, and that returns half of that value. So I can go ahead and just offset that now. Okay, so that creates that, and I can use my fillet command with a radius of 0 and fillet this to this and fillet this to that. Okay, the base plate itself is, let's see, how thick is that? It's looking like, it's hard to see, it's 1/4 of an inch plus 1/8 of an inch, it looks like. So it's basically, there's two offsets on this, a 0.125 and then an offset of 0.25 from that point. Okay. So at this point here, we have the holes on here are 1.44, let's see, 1.81. Okay, so the little pads on the bottom here are, what I'm doing right now is I'm looking for these right here. So we have our offset out to this. Okay, we had our 0.125 offset and then our 1/4 inch offset right here. So I have those established. Now I want to establish these little pads here, which are 3/4 of an inch. Okay, so we'll come back over here and offset 0.75. So we'll pick this and offset that. Okay. For some reason or other, my offsets aren't working right. So let's go into a single viewport here. And if your offsets aren't working, or something's not working, like I showed you in class, just switch from one view back to another. Okay, and that usually will take care of most problems if you have a problem. So let's try that again. I think what happened before is I offset it 75, so we have a line way out there in space someplace. It needs to be 0.75, so that would explain what just happened. Alright, so wasn't a problem with AutoCAD at all, it was just me. Okay. So we're gonna go ahead and trim away some of this stuff here and do some trimming here like this, and trim that out, trim that out, trim that, trim that, trim that, and trim that. Okay, so that's basically the base there. There's a small little radius in there. It says on the sheet all unmarked radii are 0.06, so I can use a fillet with a radius of 0.06. So we'll go ahead and just fillet that and fillet that. Okay, we're going to make a region out of this. Alright, so there's our region, and this base plate, if we look at it, it's 1.5 inch high. Okay, so Now what I'm doing right now is I'm drawing this profile of this in top view, and what I'm drawing is on the base. It's on the same level as the bottom of this base right here, so we'll end up having to move it up after we get it extruded and all that stuff, so you'll see that. But we'll give it an extrusion of 1.5 inches here, so we'll go ahead and extrude this up 1.5, and if we go back into our multiple viewports, well, I told you the wrong thing here. We were on the top actually, but it doesn't matter. You can see how this base plate is on the top, and it needs to be, it looks like it's halfway in between. Okay, so we can assume by looking at this drawing that it's halfway down 3.5 inches. Okay, so basically, you know, we can just use the move tool and we can move this down like this, and we're going to come down, oh, what, 2.25, I believe, 2.25. Okay, nope, let's see, I'm going to move that down 2.5. There we go. So that's perfectly centered where it's supposed to be at this point. Okay, so now I can go ahead and put the holes on here if I want to at this point, or I can work on this part here, trying to get this in here like this. Okay, so this creates a little bit of an interesting problem here. So what we're going to do is again draw some construction lines in here. So I'm going to just go from this end point right here, and we're going to come over to the quadrant of this. Okay, now you can see when we do something like this, this is the problem that people run into in 3D. So I went from this end point to the quadrant, and now I have a line that's not perpendicular in my plane. Okay, so if that's the case, what we need to do, because I can't snap to the edge of this cylinder, okay, but I could snap to its quadrant up here and this quadrant up here. So so I can draw some construction lines, or I can move this back up and then move it back down to use its geometry. So if we go ahead and come in here, I can move this back up. It looks like it would be up just 1 inch like that, so it's flush now back up here. So I'll go ahead and erase this line, and I'll erase some of these other construction lines to get them out of the way. Okay, so in here, if I draw from here over to this quadrant like this, and then over to that one and back to here and close that out, that creates that profile of that. So I could go ahead and region that. So I'll go ahead and pick that, pick this line, and pick this line, and so we have that region. It's 1/4 inch thick. Okay, so we're going to extrude that down 0.25. Whoops. Extrude. We'll try it one more time. 0.25. Why is it putting it up? It doesn't matter. We'll just go ahead and move it down 0.25. Okay, and then we'll move it down to center on the plate. We need to move it down. Let's see. The plate itself is 1/4 inch thick. It needs to come down to that midpoint. So we can use the move tool, and we'll just move this, and we'll bring it down. Let's see. .6, and then we're going to move this down point, or actually not point, but 1 inch. Okay, so we're back centered again like that. Only problem is that we have this sketch, this solid here going through this cylinder, which isn't that big of a deal because we can go ahead and get that out of there. Okay, we can do it a couple different ways. We can go ahead and put in another circle here and put in the radius or the diameter of that of 1.5. Okay, extrude last, and we'll just go ahead and extrude that up through. Oops, what happened? I think I undid one step too far, so I have to put my circle back in there again one more time. Diameter 1.5. Extrude last object, and go ahead and come over to this viewport here and just go like that. Okay, now this cylinder here, I can't really see how far down it's going, so let's go into wireframe so we can see that is going all the way through. So we could use the subtract command, pick this object first, then pick my cylinder second, and it will create that like that. Okay, so we can go ahead and put that back on conceptual. At this point here, we can union this and this and this, make it all one, so it's all one object at this point. And then we just basically have the rib that's going across here like this. So again, that rib that I'm going to put on here, I can use my right viewport to put some construction lines in here. So I'm going to start my line in the right viewport, come up here, pick the midpoint here of this face, and come straight down. Okay, and I want it to kind of come down to this midpoint right here. Okay, so we have that line on there at this point. Okay, in order to see that line, we're going to switch from conceptual to wireframe. Okay, so it's right there, and we'll use offset again on that, and we're going to offset that 0.125. So I'll go ahead and pick that line, pick that side, pick the line, pick this side. All right, and then all we have to do is connect that line up with a couple of other lines. So we'll pick from there to there, and from there to there, and we should be able to use a region now. So we'll make a region out of that. Okay, we have that, and then we can extrude this. And basically come over to this viewport, and we basically want it going into that cylinder. Okay, so I want it basically touching that other one, but I don't want it coming all the way through, or else I'd have to subtract that back out again. So I'll bring it through and then just kind of back it off a little bit like that. And then if we use the union command, we can absorb that into here by picking those two, and we should be all set there. Okay, so so we're all set here, and whoops, something's going wrong here. All right, we'll go ahead and switch this to a single viewport. All The only other thing that we have left on here is doing some filleting. So I can go ahead and some holes as well. So basically we need to fillet these edges here. We need to put the holes in. So I could go ahead and put these holes in. So basically we got a line that's going to come from this end point to this end point. And you can see I thought I clicked an end point to end point, but I didn't, so I'm going to erase that. And I'm going to draw another line from that end point there to that end point right there. Okay. And I'm going to draw a line from midpoint, and I'm going to go straight down. Okay, I'll turn on ortho to help me out so that we go straight down like that. And then we'll use offset of 1.44 to that side and to that side over there. Then the holes are down 0.375 from the top, so we'll use offset again, 0.375. So we'll pick that one, come down like that. I need to switch over to my multiple viewports here so we can kind of take this line and bring it across like that. Makes it a little easier. Alright, and I can see it up here. Okay, and I can put in a circle here, and that first circle is diameter 0.18. So I can copy that. And then I can come down here and use mirror to mirror these. Okay. I'm going to erase my construction lines. Alright. We're going to use extrude again. Pick my 4 circles. Now if you don't want this cycling to come up, you can always turn it off down here. Sometimes it does get in the way when you know what you want to pick. Alright, so we'll just have those going like that, and then subtract. So there we go. That's all done. And let's see, we got the corners to fillet, which have a fillet radius of 0.125. What I'm talking about here are these corners here on this base plate. All 4 corners are rounded over. We also got a fillet weld around here. This is filleted all the way around, so we assume the top is as well. So we're going to go ahead and just perform some fillets here. So our first radius for this fillet is 0.125. So I'll pick that line there, and that's good. I'll pick this line. I'll orbit up, pick this line, orbit over, and pick that line, hit enter, and those are done now. Okay. Then we'll do our base plate. So we'll do fillet, and does it say on here? Let's see. I'm gonna say that those are 1/8 of an inch as well. So it says all unmarked radii are 0.06, but I think that's too small for those. So we're gonna use 1/8 of an inch. So I'll go ahead and just pick this line right here, and we'll say loop, the second one, and because we have that, we want to say next so that it's going all the way around the base, and that fillets all that down. That looks about right. And then we'll fillet this other right here where it's welded to the base here, so 0.125 as well. So we have something like that. And then up top, we're going to do the same thing. So fillet, we'll pick this line first. And we'll say L for loop, and we'll pick this. Now see how it's picking this here, down here at the command line? It's asking us for accepting it or next. So I'm going to say next, and it will pick the line instead of that surface there. And then when I accept that, that'll fillet that. So, and then we'll try it one more time here with this one. And I think we're done now. We can go ahead and save this off, and our first model is done. So now that we have this piece done, I want to save it off and make changes to it. So we're gonna keep this one as called Assignment 7 Problem A. So I'm gonna come up here and do a save as, and I'm gonna call it Problem 7 Problem B. Assignment 7 Problem B. So that way A stays the same. Now we're gonna make changes to this and see how we can do some modifications. So over here I'm showing you guys the changes that have to occur. So one of the things is going to be, we're going to take the base off. So we're going to remove the base, and we're going to add 2 inches to the cylinder. We're also going to increase the diameter of these 4 holes. We're also going to, if you can see here, we're going to split this base plate up on the top and make some steps. So we're going to step it up, and we're also going to inset this down into this plate a little bit, basically taking off some material. So you can see here we're going to offset this shape inward 0.135. So basically the shape that makes this up, we're going to offset it inward, and then it's going to sink down into that plate here by 0.11. So we'll make those changes and show you how to do those. So over here we'll start off with the base, and we'll go from there. So when we first start editing in here, I'm going to just switch off to my 3D modeling here, and we're going to change it to single viewport, excuse me. And the first thing that you need to know about is the fact that you can go in here, and to make modifications you use the control key on your keyboard. So for instance, I want to get rid of this base plate, so I'm going to kind of zoom up like this so I can see the base plate like this, and I'm going to hold down the control key, and I'm going to select this. And when I do this, you can see how I'm picking this face like this, so it's highlighting the face by holding the control key. And if I hit the delete key, it's going to tell me I can't do it at this point because it can't fix that gap. So what I need to do is take out probably the fillets first, and then I can probably get rid of the base plate. So I'm going to hold down the control key, and I'm going to pick that fillet right here. And it's also handy actually to turn on the selection cycling so that you can kind of see what you're actually selecting. So when I click on this, I want the solid face for that. So now that it's highlighted, I can just hit the delete key and it'll delete that out. And I can do the same thing with this fillet here. So I'm going to pick this one, solid face, and hit the delete key. Hold down the control key again, and it might take you a couple different steps to do that. Okay, so it's telling me I can't get rid of that for some reason or other. So I think we have to pick all of these together. Yeah, let's see if that will work. I don't want the edge. So sometimes you may have to orbit to do some of this. So hold down the control key. There we go. And then I'm going to hold shift and orbit. Hold down the control key. Pick that. And shift. Come over here and control again. And pick that. And then I should be able to hit the delete key and delete all those all at once. And then let's see if we can delete the base plate now. We may have to get rid of these holes first, but we'll try this. And I'll pick this first. We get that. And I should be able to hit enter and hit delete. And there we go. We've deleted that out. Now one of the problems that happens with doing that, notice that we got these holes in here, okay? And those holes came from the holes on the bottom because they were kind of rods that were sticking up through. So it's not to worry though, we can get rid of those as well. So just hold down the control key again and pick inside here like that so that we get that face, and then hit the delete key. And we'll round over to here to this side and hold down the control key and pick that face, get that one and hit the delete key, and there we go. Alright, so we've just made those changes, and now we want to extend this bottom of this down 2 inches. So we have a couple different ways to do that. If we come up here to the solid, we can either come in here. Some of these are older commands. The solid editing commands, by the way, are actually all one command, and there's basically one solid editing command, and then within that there are subcommands. So like for instance, the shell is a subcommand, and separate and clean and taper face and extrude face and offset face. These are all solid edit commands. So like if I pick extrude face for instance, and I can come in here, I can pick this face right here, then I should be able to give a height, and I could say, okay, I want to extrude that down -2, and it would go ahead and subtract that up or down depending on which direction I was going. So obviously that was incorrect. The newer method is the press pull command, which is really a great command. We'll look at this in a little bit more detail, but basically the way that this works is you hit press pull, you pick the surface that you want, okay, and in this case here sometimes you have to rotate a little bit to actually get the correct surface. For some reason or other it's not letting me pick that. Let's try it one more time. Press pull. Something's not working here. Let's try it again. So that one's working. That's working, and that one's working, and that one's working. For some reason or other, it doesn't like the bottom of this cylinder. Alright, so we will use the old command on this one, and we'll come back to press pull here in a second then. So I'm going to come back up here to extrude faces, and I'm going to basically pick my face that I want, and it's asking me for the height, so I'm going to type in 2, and it's asking me for an angle of taper for the extrusion. I don't want it to taper, I want it to just go straight down, so I'll hit enter, and that adds 2 inches to that. So so we have our first part done here. Okay. Next thing is, let's increase the size of these holes. Let's talk about holes for a second. Now, I actually created these holes by creating a circle and extruding them. If you use a cylinder versus a circle, they act a little bit different, and solid modeling. So for instance, if I hold down the control key and I pick this area here and I pick this solid face like this, I don't have any options really to resize this hole. I can actually move it. Okay, I can move that hole using this UCS icon. I can move it, and I can move it up and down. That's all nice and great, but and if I right click on it and go into the properties for this, you can see here we can change things like the layer and line type and all this sort of stuff, but it's not giving me the option for the actual diameter or the radius of that hole. So if you have holes like this and you need to change the size of them, increasing the size is actually easier than decreasing the size. So for instance, if I went in here, I wanted to make the hole bigger, the radius is 0.21, so I'm going to go ahead and create circle, and I'll pick my circle right here, and I'll put in my radius of 0.21 like that. So I have a larger hole like that now. And this time down here I'm going to use a cylinder instead. So, and we'll pick here, and this time the radius is 0.21, and I want it to go completely through like that. Okay, so by doing this, I'm going to kind of show you what's going to happen here. So if I this one up here, I can use Extrude. Okay, we can pick that and extrude this through like that. So when I use subtract, it works the same way. I'm going to pick my base solid first and then hit subtract. Let's try that again. Pick my base solid first and then pick my cylinder here and this cylinder here and hit enter, and they both get subtracted. Okay, now the difference being here, when I want to change, say, the radius of this hole, which is a cylinder, if I hold down the control key and I pick this, okay, this is going to be my face here, I should be able to go ahead and it doesn't seem to be working. I'll have to show us another example of that. Huh, that's interesting. So let's try this one. Oh, my cat's going crazy. All right. All right, so I'll have to show you that in another example here in a minute, but that's how we can basically increase the size of these holes. If I were going to decrease the size of this hole, or say I wanted to change the size of these back down and make them smaller, what I would do is I would still put in a circle, okay, here as my, because it would, I have my object snap there. I don't want to have to find that again, so I can go ahead and put that in, and I could say, okay, this is going to be 0.15. Okay, so I have a smaller circle like that. So at this point here, I can use my control key. I'd have to actually physically delete this hole like that. Okay, so I'll select it and then hit the delete key, and that leaves back this 2D circle. So then I could go ahead and extrude this and subtract it. So it's a little bit more drawn out that way. But so over here again, to fix these holes here, you might want to just use a cylinder. It's a little bit easier, I think, sometimes. So it has a radius of 0.21, comes through about like that far. Use the subtract command, pick this. Okay, so those holes are now done. So we've now completed, a good portion of this. We have these holes larger. Okay, we have to increase the size of these base feet. I want it to be 0.87. So we basically want to extrude them out from their original size, which was, let's see, hold on a second. So I want this total distance to be 0.87, and it originally was 0.125 and 0.25, or the total thickness from here to here was 0.375, and we want to increase it to 0.87, so we subtract the two and come up with a difference of 0.495. So I should be able to go ahead in here, and this time we'll try press pull instead of extrude. Okay, we could use extrude face and do the same thing as we did to the bottom. I'm going to try press pull again, and when I do this, you can see how when I hover with press pull, it highlights this entire face. So I can click on that, and I can just drag this out, and I can, as I'm dragging it out straight like that, I can type in 0.495 and hit enter, and that will create that. So I'll do press pull again like this, and 0.495. Okay, so something like that. So that increases that as well, so that's done now. Up here we're going to come up and look at what else we have to do here. We have these splits up here where we're splitting it in half and splitting it as a quarter. So again, this is a great thing for doing this with the press pull command, because when you split a face, all you really have to do is draw some lines on here. So for instance, I can go from midpoint to midpoint here, and from this midpoint to that center there. So when AutoCAD looks at this now, it's going to look at a separation here and here and here. So when I use the press pull command, notice it's only highlighting that one and highlighting that one. So if we look here, we can see here we're extending this one up 0.35, and then this other one 0.35, or 0.7 tall. So in here, what we'll do is I'm going to use press pull, and I'm going to pick this first one, and this is going to come up 0.35. Okay, and then I'll pick this one, and this one's going to come up 0.7. So that's all there is to that, and I can just go ahead and erase that like that. There used to be, or there still is, a command to do that with the solid editing, and that was called Imprint, and it works basically the same type of way here. So it's right here, it's called Imprint. It imprints geometry onto a 3D solid, creating additional edges on a planar face. So basically, if I draw a line from here to this midpoint here, okay, and I come in here, I can say imprint. Basically, you pick the solid first and hit enter, and then you select the object that you want to imprint, which would be this line here, and hit enter, and that should separate this solid into two different areas, two distinct areas. It seemed like it bombed on me, so let's try that again. My command line moved on me. I'm going to dock it back down here again. So let's do imprint one more time. We'll select the solid, select the object to imprint, which is that one, and it asks you, do you want to delete the source object? And I'll say no, and I'll just get out of the command like that. So now that's actually separate on there. It's actually separated that out in that line. So it acts a little bit different than putting construction lines on, because it actually becomes part of the model at this point. So either way that you do it is perfectly acceptable. It doesn't matter which way you really do it. So okay. So the next part of this is we're going to do this offset shape here inward of 0.135. So in order to do that, probably best practices is to come back into our multiple viewports so we can kind of see what we're doing. And I'll just kind of go like this. Actually, we might not have to use the multiple viewports, but we'll try this anyway. So basically what I'm going to do is come back up here to solid, and we're going to come down and extract edges or offset edges. We could do either one. So we'll try offset edge first, and you're basically going to pick a face like this, and you can see how it's letting me go like that, and it's asking me for the through point or distance or corner. So I'm going to type in D for distance, and that distance is going to be what did I say it was going to be? 0.135, I believe. 0.135. And I'm going to pick the side I want to offset it, and there you go. It's done just like that. Okay. So we can do something like that, and you can see that in there. Okay. So we'll try it on this side as well. Okay, so we'll come in here and do that one more time. Offset edge. So I'm going to pick the face I want to offset it on right here. So you can see it's using its edges. I want to type in D for distance, put in the distance, pick the side I want it to be, and there you go. Okay. So at this point where you should be able to go ahead and use press pull. So I'll go ahead and pick press pull. The nice thing about press pull is if you're going into a solid, it will do a subtract automatically for you. So we can go ahead and just pick this surface here, and you can see how as I'm dragging it down like this, I'm going to just put in the distance that's supposed to be. And hold on, I can't remember what it is, so we'll come back over here. It's 0.11. Okay, so we'll try that one more time. Press pull. We'll go ahead and pick that. And make sure you're not snapping to anything up here. You're kind of bringing this down 0.11. Okay, so for some reason or other it put it up. That's weird. Okay. Even though I was dragging down. Let's go back into a single viewport here. And let's try that one more time. Press pull. I want to make sure I'm not picking. I should be able to just put in 0.11. And it's not quite working. It's bringing it up. That's strange. Okay. Well, let's try it another way. There's always multiple ways to do this. So, press pull. So I'll pick that again. And I'll bring it down 0.11. Alright, well, if it's not working in the positive direction, then we will do it in a negative direction. So we'll do press pull and pick that, and I'll come down here and I'm going to just say minus 0.11. There we go. So I'll put the minus in front of it, and that way it drives it down instead of up. I'm not sure why it's doing that, but as you can see, there are usually some kind of problems here and there, but we'll click and bring this back down minus 0.11, and there we go. So that's now done. Alright, and have we completed this? Let's see. Let's go back over here. So we've offset that down, we've extended those out, we've split all those. So our model is now complete. Now I want to show you guys some other things though that didn't happen in this model, but sometimes it's important to know how to do some of these other aspects. So one of the things I wanted to show you guys was the hole modification. So I'm going to just start a new file here and say open, and we'll go ahead and turn off the grid, and I'm going to just create a simple rectangle, and I'm going to extrude this up an inch, and let's look at it like this. Alright, so this time what I'm going to do is I want to show you guys something about the history of these objects. So when you're in solid up here, notice that we have this thing called solid history. This will record basically when you're subtracting or unioning things together. So, and you can also get it from the properties of the object. So when I click on this and right click and go into the properties for this, you can see in here we have history. It says none, and I want to say record so that I can start recording the history. So I can go ahead and put a circle in here. So we'll do circle, and I want the dynamic UCS on so that I can actually draw on top of this. Okay, so I'm going to put in a circle. My object snaps are getting in the way. I'm going to turn those off. So circle. There we go. So something like that. And then I'll do a cylinder as well, like here, and bring that down like that. This one here, I'm going to extrude this circle down. Okay, there we go. And then we'll subtract them. So we'll pick the base point and then pick this and pick that, and there we go. Alright. So now if we want to change sizes on this thing here, if we use the control key and pick this, okay, notice how when you pick this you get this because they were consumed at the same time. Okay, and if I want to make edits to these, I really can't, so you can kind of see what happens here. If I have just a single cylinder here, and we bring that down and subtract this one out, okay, and then I use the control key to pick this time. Notice how this time we have the grips on here where we can actually increase the size of the hole, and that's because this is a cylinder. And if we right click on this and go into the properties in here, you can see we have the radius in here. So I could say, okay, well that's supposed to be a 1-inch radius, and I can just hit enter and it's done. Okay, versus over here when we go in here to pick this, okay, I have to do 2 clicks on that. Okay, 2 controls. I'm holding down control and picking it. So I'll try that again and show you. So hold down control, we pick this, it shows both of these being consumed at the same time. If I hold down control and click again, it should, you know, pick it one more time. So we'll click, and there we go. So this was made by doing a hole, so I can't physically change its size or anything like that one. So on this one here, if I click like that and hold down control and click again, for whatever reason it still doesn't like that. So so you have to be aware of how you're subtracting and what you're subtracting and all that sort of stuff. So all of our primitives actually have those grips where you can hold down the control key like this, and you can see we have grips on here that you can actually increase the size of the rectangle, decrease the size of the rectangle, that sort of stuff. And you can see basically I can actually change that top surface like that, so you can see that sort of thing like that. Okay, if I hold down control again, I can pick these separately and move this face and skew this. Okay, so I can kind of go like that, and you can see that happening. Okay, so you know, primitives do have their place, and if you use primitives, they're a little bit more, well, they're a little better sometimes for editing purposes. And then also that history thing that I was showing you here, if you go into properties, you can also click on this and say show history yes, and basically it will show you your objects. So when you click on it, you can see silhouettes of all your objects that have been consumed, and so on and so forth. Okay. So other types of things, let's see. I wanted to also show you guys, like for instance, let's make a box here, and let's put a cylinder in this box. Let's subtract it out. Okay, so right now this is considered to be a solid object. It has mass, and it has it's solid all the way through. One of the cool features up here is the shell command. Lets you actually give your solid object a wall thickness. So if this was made with plastic instead, you could do this. So basically you pick the object first, and then it asks you, when you do the shell command, it asks you to pick the face that you want to remove to see inside. So I'm going to pick this top face like that and hit enter, and then it asks for the shell distance, and we'll go 0.0625, and you can see how it will shell the box out like this. Okay, so, and if I wanted to, I could have not done that. If I went ahead and did shell and just pick this like this and not remove faces and just hit enter, and I'll go 0.125 like that, it now has a shell, but we have no way of seeing it. The only way to really see that is to change the view mode to say like X-ray, and then in X-ray you can kind of see the double lines here indicating that. So that's also another kind of cool feature. So another kind of cool feature is being able to split or slice these in half. So in this case here, this would be kind of neat to do this way. So we'll bring this back conceptual, and we'll come back up here to home. And I always found the best way to cut an object in half is to actually put a plane in here, or just a single rectangle, if you will. So let me zoom extents here in this viewport, and zoom extents in this viewport so we can kind of see. So say I want to cut this object like right through this cylinder and here, and separate this box in two pieces. What I could do is come over here in my right hand side viewport and just put in a rectangle like this that goes around this object like so. Okay, and then up here, see, here's my rectangle that I just drew. So I can take that rectangle and move it into position where I want the cross section to go. So I can kind of do like that. Okay, so you can see this. So when I come up here, I can use the slice command to actually click slice, and it's going to ask me to select the object I want to slice, which is this box. Okay, I hit enter, and then it asks me for my slice, specifying my slice point or slice plane. So there's lots of different options here. You can do like 3 points, pick 3 points, but it's much easier. You can see down here where it says planar object. Okay, so I'm going to pick planar object, and then it's going to ask me to go ahead and just pick a plane object, which is this rectangle. It asks me now point to the desired side or keep both sides. Okay, so if I want to get rid of one side versus the other, I just pick one side versus the other like that. So I'm keeping this side, and now I actually sliced into this object, and you can kind of see it. So once you slice it, it's gone. So let's undo that again and try slice again, and I'll do this one more time. So we'll pick this, say O for object, and we'll pick this, and I'll say this time we'll keep both. Okay, so in this case here we have both objects now, so I can actually physically move these and slice them apart, so you can kind of see they're now separated, which is usually what I do, because depends on how you want to do that sort of thing. So so occasionally you may be working on something and you're like, well, I want that same exact shape. Okay, I need to work on this off to the side someplace or whatever. So this extract edges works really well this way, where I can pick my solid like this, and it asks me to select the edges that I want to extract. So I can hold down the control key and just pick the edges that I want like this, and pick and pick and pick, and when I hit enter, okay, like that, it extracts those edges. So if I use the move command and I just move my solid out of the way here, okay, notice what we're left with is the profile of that object. So now I could go in here, I'll erase this line here, excuse me, and now I can do work to this, and I can say, okay, well, I wanted to see, what I could do if I, put another circle in right here and did a trim on that, and maybe trim this out, okay, and then, make this back into a region like this, and then extrude this back up like this, and then I could say, okay, well, I need to move this on top of this now, so I'll click move, and I'll pick my endpoint here and pick my endpoint here, and now that one is on top of that. Okay, so I have something like that, and if I wanted to, I could union them together. So I could pick this one, and now they're unioned together. It's one object. Okay, but notice the shell doesn't get taken out of there, okay, which is what's supposed to happen. So so many different ways to work here. Thicken converts a surface into a solid with a specified thickness. So occasionally, you may run into a time when you have, just a line like this, and you accidentally extruded it. Okay, so at this point here, this is not considered a solid, it's considered a plane, and we know this because when we pick it, you can see the grid pattern on it. If it was a solid object, it wouldn't have the grid. And if you also go on here and look at the properties for this, it tells you that it's a surface. Okay, so if I want to convert this into a solid, I can use the thicken command to pick this like that and give it a thickness, and I could say, okay, 2, and now this is now a solid object. Okay, so that basically takes care of that. Okay, and then interfere basically creates a temporary 2D solid from the interferences between two other solids. So so say for instance I have a cylinder. Let's make this cylinder like this. Oops. Okay, not behaving right. Let's try it one more time. Just move that into position. Okay, so if we have two solids like this, and I say interfere, I can pick this one first. Pick the second, okay, and then it will show me where the interference is between these two. So it says interfere, select second set of objects, okay, and in this case here we can it found one intersecting pair. You can say next, next, and it's just basically going to cycle through these. Okay, we can close that out. Okay, and it just basically gives you an indication of where there's interferences between objects. Okay, it's a little bit more advanced for what we're doing right now, but just to know that it's up there. Okay, so we've covered fillet and chamfer. We haven't covered taper faces, and we haven't covered offset faces, but basically offsetting a face, you know, a given distance, and taper faces lets you taper a solid. So, you know, for instance, I could come in here and let's see if we taper this face here. We'll say taper. You pick the face that you want here, and you're going to pick the base point. Okay, so I don't have any object snaps on just yet, so let's pick here to here. Okay, and I'll say 15 degrees. Okay, and so because I did that, you can see how it tapered that face down. Okay, it's a little easier to see if we did it on a box. So let me just erase this stuff here for a second, and let's do a box. Okay, so we have something like that. Let's go back in here and single viewport. Okay, and we'll go back into solids, taper face. So say for instance we want to taper this face here on the side. Okay, the base point's going to be, say, right here, and I want another point along the axis of tapering, so I want it to taper along the bottom here. So I'm going to pick from that end point to this end point, and I want that taper to be 15 degrees. So I hit enter, and you can see how it tapers that. Okay, see the tapering. So it's 15 degrees back. So this was my base point. This was the point of the taper, so it tapered it back that way. Another way to taper an object is to just, if it's a primitive object, if you hold down the control key and pick this, okay, because it's now a tapered object, we don't get the grips in here, whereas you do with a box like this. So you can pick that edge and taper that out. I guess we could do that to this too. If we hold down the control key and pick that face and then pick that edge, you can see how you get that little grip there, and then you can just taper that out like that, so you can kind of see how that tapers. And the rest of this stuff is a little bit more advanced, and I'm not going to really get into that at this point. So I think we're done for today. Have fun.